Hello, my name is Jahara. Welcome to Head to Heart. And today we have with us Fariel Salahuddin, who is the founder and CEO of Goats for Water, UpTrade, a company that is creating livestock as currency for smallholder farmers in developing economies and streamlining the livestock value chain in Pakistan. Fariel is a TED Fellow, a TED speaker, a Summit Young Global Leader, and a Fulbright Fellow. In her previous life, Fariel worked in Indonesia, Egypt, Pakistan, and the Middle East, North Africa region, advising governments and private sector on energy policy, reforms, and renewable energy project development. Fariel is also a first place Cartier Women Initiative Impact Awardee in the Creating Opportunities category. That is a lot, Fariel. So, I mean, it's so amazing to read all this about you, and I'm sure there's a lot more that's not a part of the bio. But tell us a little bit about UpTrade, Goats for Water, and how this business model has empowered villagers with lack of access to water and electricity.
So thank you, Jahanara. Thank you for having me on this great platform. As we were discussing, it's so important to have this at this time. So about UpTrade, let me start with the story of how it started. So like your intro said, that in my previous life, I used to work in the power sector. And that is actually what took me to the off-grid areas to explore solar. And my objective was to get solar energy to these communities. When I got there, it was pretty obvious that the biggest hurdle was affordability and access also. So what we came up with was this very simple idea, that if these communities don't have the cash to pay for these assets, which can really improve the quality of their lives, then let's take payment in what they do have. And what they did have and what they do have is livestock, what they raise, and also what they grow in terms of crops. So we've started with livestock. And so my company, that's what it does. We started with water, Goats for Water, where the name comes from, by giving the community solar water pumps, and they pay for those pumps in livestock. And then we sell the livestock to meat companies, and now we have our own meat line, so we sell the meat.
I'm on mute. That's interesting. Now, tell me, how has the energy sector and the energy policy in Pakistan changed in the last few years? Has there been any noticeable shifts, or has it more or less remained the same?
So I've been out of the sector for a while now, but I can tell you what I've been observing from the ground as now a practitioner rather than on the policy side. And I mean, one of the biggest things that's happened recently is the tax on solar, which to me is really flabbergasting. Why would you tax solar, which is, you know, increasing access to energy, especially in an environment of electricity shortage, of utilities that have been struggling to meet the needs. So that sort of policy change, I do not understand. On the other hand, in the last few years, we have seen an improvement in a number of private companies that have come up to give power to the grid. We've seen a massive shortage in gas, and now we are moving towards and have moved towards imported gas and piped LNG. But primarily, I think we are more or less kind of where we were. And having seen the policy side, at least back in the day when I used to be there, I don't think we ever had any proper sort of planning around power. It was kind of ad hoc. I don't know how it's been in the years, and the way the power sector works is that it takes 5 to 10 years for the impact of actions taken back then to come around and show themselves. So let's see how things go.
Okay. So tell me, can gender inclusive laws help offset these challenges to water sustainability?
That's a really interesting question. And just last week, I was actually on a panel with the ambassador for water from Australia and this amazing woman who is the deputy director for the Panama Canal. And we were having this discussion. I was, of course, talking about the perspective of the least empowered women when it comes to water, which are the women who are responsible for bringing water to their homes in these water-stressed communities. And I'll tell you my perspective from what I have seen in these communities, right? So in one of the communities that we worked with, my team was really perplexed because what ended up happening was, and in these communities, let me tell you how it works, right? So women are the ones who are responsible for collecting the water, bringing it to the homes, and then allocating that water. But it is the men who control the resources. So when we go into a community and we start negotiating on the pricing, it's the men who kind of negotiate with us. So in one of the communities that we worked with, what ended up happening was that the community comes together to put together the livestock, which they give as payment. But in one of these communities, there was some sort of a disagreement with another community who was using the water. And these men who had contributed, they ended up dismantling the entire solar water pump with few panels ending up in one house, a few panels ending up in one house, and the pump ending up in one house, resulting in no one having access or the easier access to water. I know from my interactions in these communities, women, what they care about is, are our children getting water? Do we have water for bathing? Do we have enough water for cleaning, cooking, for the animals? I really don't think this would have happened if the women were in charge of the resources, where they would dismantle the entire plant, because
I think you're right.
I really do believe I'm right.
Yeah, they wouldn't do something as stupid. And I'm sorry to use that word, but it's true. I mean, you're not helping yourself or anyone else by dismantling everything, right? Anyway, so definitely if women were in charge of the resources, I'm sure this would not have happened. So tell me, what have been the biggest constraints or challenges in getting the Pakistani population to see the importance of a shift towards sustainable development?
So I believe that it starts with the mindset. And especially when we talk about water, which comes under sustainable development, and electricity now, and where we're getting our energy from. We, back in the day, and somewhat related to water now, see water, electricity as a public good, that, oh, somebody else should be providing, and we are entitled to this, without seeing it. And especially people who like us live in the urban areas where everything is very easily accessible, right? We end up taking things for granted, and we see these resources कि हाँ ये तो हमें नल से आ जाता है पानी, जब हम नल खोलें, बिजली खोलें तो बिजली आ जाती है, but we need to see it as something which is finite, which we have to use responsibly. And that mindset used to happen with with electricity, which has now changed, because I mean, our electricity is super expensive. In fact, it's the most expensive in the region. And with water, and we saw that happen with gas, right? When gas was so cheap and so abundantly available, we were so blessed with so much gas, and we ended up putting up CNG stations, putting it in our cars, putting it in our taxis, not really thinking about
long-term vision, huh?
Yeah, and no planning either. So now look at where we are. Similarly with water, I mean, we as people need to be more aware that these aren't infinite resources. And there needs to be a little bit of awareness around this. And that, I think, is going to change things.
Okay. So tell me, what is the importance of the livestock economy for Pakistan and what are the challenges?
So the livestock economy, Jahanara, is a very integral part of our economy. It's from the last estimates, and they're varying estimates on this, it's a $7.8 billion industry. And it contributes almost 13% to the agricultural GDP of the country. Yeah, and it's a huge export commodity for Pakistan, which we haven't really properly tapped into. Now, what is happening in the livestock value chain in Pakistan? It is extremely inefficient. And the people who suffer because of this inefficiency are, on one side, the farmers who are raising these animals. And right. On the other side are us, the consumers, the end consumers, where the prices are going up and the quality is nowhere close to what it should be, considering that we have these resources. And the reason why it's so inefficient is, number one, it is completely an informal sector. And number two, it is highly fragmented. And by that, I mean that the people who are raising these animals are so far removed from markets. And this is precisely what we are now working on as UpTrade. They're so removed from market, and there's so many intermediaries in the middle and the livestock changes hands that A, it becomes expensive, and B, it becomes a commodity which we don't really take care of, where the quality is not maintained, where it's not really sort of, the breeds aren't taken care of. There's been a huge sort of depleting stock in the country. Pakistan has, I think, the third or fourth largest standing herd, but the census was last done in 2006. Can you imagine? We have not done a census on this huge resource that the country has since 2006.
But why is that? Is it very difficult to do?
I can't speak for that. I can imagine it must be difficult because, yes, reaching these communities is very hard. They are very remote. But we managed to do it in 2006. Punjab did it in, I think, 2019, if I'm not wrong. But we need to have a nationwide census. We need to have a stock taking of the breeds that we have. Currently, the breeds that we have aren't the most efficient, I would say, in the sense, in terms of breeding, in terms of what we call conversion of fodder to meat, fodder to milk. And there are people who are looking into this now, but I think we need to do it holistically on a policy level.
And in what you do, Fariel, has it been difficult to navigate government approvals and the coordination that is required to make it happen? Have you had any difficulty, or has it been relatively easy to maneuver?
Some of it has been easy. Like we've had to get some certifications. We've had to get, for example, licenses, halal license, we have a very good body, an international halal committee, which actually is pretty easy to work with. And but on the other hand, we had to get, we are selling to Metro, and one of the requirements is something called a KMC certificate, which is issued by KMC over here. And oh my God, Metro, who's our anchor buyer, and they have been amazing. They've been very supportive. They've really supported our company in terms of teaching us what is needed. But it took us 2 years to be able to start selling to them because of this one license which is needed. Because the government of Sindh needs it. All slaughtering is done through the KMC slaughterhouse. right? And it's a ridiculous requirement, because if you go and see that KMC slaughterhouse, I will tell you, you will not want to eat anything that is being slaughtered there. While there are these amazing state-of-the-art abattoirs, the government of Sindh and Karachi actually requires कि जो भी आपका meat Karachi में sell हो रहा है, that has to be done through KMC, which is really, I mean, either improve that facility, bring it up to par, or, you know, allow these other abattoirs, which are really, you know, have put in a lot of capital to bring it up to international standards, allow them to be used. This rule has to be changed.
So are you using the KMC facility then?
Yeah, we have to by rule. Yeah.
So who uses these other modern facilities that have been set up?
Exporters.
Okay.
Exporters use them, because the exporters, the way it works is that every country, the government of each country which is importing meat from Pakistan, will come and evaluate each abattoir and allow only that abattoir to process the meat which is being sent to these countries.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I don't understand why, you know, this can't change, why you can't have the option to use the facilities that are actually available in the country or in the city.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess we just have to work at it and hope that this change will be made. Maybe we can talk to the Sindh government and see if this change can come about. Is it the Sindh government or is it the Karachi city?
It's Karachi. It's Karachi city government. And it's a rule apparently. Like we spoke to Metro. We spoke to Metro and we said, why do you have this requirement? Like, you know, and they were also like, look, we cannot, we're an international corporation. We cannot go against the rules. And one of the rules is that we need to have this KMC certificate and something which is required.
Okay, so tell me, how is making the villagers self-reliant had an impact? Have you seen an impact over the period that you've been working with them?
Yes, definitely. You know, Jahanara, we see the impact which we didn't even sort of had gone out to achieve. These are just sort of the long-term impact that start playing out and then we become aware of. But the first thing, the first impact, the first sort of why we do what we do is these communities in Pakistan. And you know, if you read Esther Duflo's work, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics 2 years ago, they observe that the poor are treated as the other, and they're treated as when anyone is going from the outside who does not live in similar ecosystems goes in, they see this poverty and they see them as the other, and they're there to kind of help and give, right? But the fact of the matter is that there are dynamics at play which can be tapped into to really bring them into the mainstream. Right. And what has happened is that the communities have also kind of become used to seeing themselves as disempowered, because that's the narrative around it, that this NGO will come and give us this, the government will come and give us this. And the biggest impact of our work is that the communities suddenly realize, oh, we don't have to wait for someone to come and give us this or buy us this. We can actually buy it ourselves. And the communities know like very well what they need, and even know on a very granular level of production, what is it that they need. And it's just about kind of listening in on it and making,
how widespread has the impact been? I mean, have you been able to cover a lot of ground, or is it just Sindh or parts of Sindh?
No, we've only been able to cover parts of Sindh. And, you know, we started with very sort of limited capital, and we've been now we are able to, we've got FAO on board. FAO is now helping us reach more communities and more areas of Sindh, because our mandate is just to provide the services, and we rely on partnerships to reach the farming communities, partners who already have established relationships to come and introduce us. And so FAO we have recently partnered with, and it has really been a huge sort of help for us to get a foothold into the communities. So
tell us
far,
about FAO. What and who are FAO?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's one of the issues that we get lost in the limbo. So FAO is the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization. And their mandate is to work with farmers to secure food. And in Pakistan, they are doing a very good job in the sense that they have created something called farmer marketing groups, where farmers themselves work with private sector to market to, and the private sector companies like ours come in and help them market whatever they're producing and raising. So that is what FAO is and what they're doing for in this area. They have a larger mandate. This is what this is the side we come in.
So by helping them market, what percentage are they able to retain of whatever revenue is generated?
So when you are able to market, it's the revenues go completely to them. We are just breaking that, like I said, the fragmented value chain. Us and other companies that are also working with FAO on the produce side. Another thing that really helps the communities is that these communities and farmers, when they sell what they grow and raise, they are kind of at the mercy of whoever's buying.
Yeah. And
whoever's buying are mostly the middlemen. And that is true. For example, in the wheat sector, we just started in Jamshoro, and Jamshoro right now is the time for wheat cultivation. And we had gone in, we are working with them on the livestock side, and they said, please help us sell our wheat, because what's been happening is that the middlemen who buy from us, they buy from us at even below government rates. Wow. And we don't have a place to keep that wheat. And so we are forced to sell at this rate, right? And one of the best things which has happened, Jahanara, recently in terms of policy is the warehouse financing, which is coming, the state bank one. I think that is much needed. It's going to help food waste, because a lot of crops, a lot of produce are wasted because there's just no storage. And it'll help farmers sort of, they're not going to be this vulnerable at the time of sale, ki acha ab hum kahan jayein, kisko bechein, ye kharab ho jayega, because they will actually have a place to go and store and get a payment against it. Because a lot of farmers will sell when they need, especially with livestock. Livestock is literally like an ATM machine. So they will sell livestock when they need the money. And what ends up happening is that the middlemen, some of them, not all of them, but quite a few of them, will not pay the farmer in time. He will drag out the payment. He will not pay the whole sum. He will promise one amount and not the whole amount is going to be paid, because he's going to be like, oh, main gaya tha mandi, but ye nahi aayi price, right? And the farmer has no clue ki kya price aayi, kya nahi aayi, because there's so little price transparency. So that's where actually the impact comes in terms of market.
Yes, I can see that. And how can the inclusion of rural and marginalized communities, especially women, change the structure and efficiency of the current Pakistani economy? I think there can be a greater impact, right?
I absolutely agree. There can be, because one of the biggest issues, or not issues, it is an issue, is that women, and I can speak for the livestock sector, right? They are the ones who care for the animal. They are the ones who raise the animal, who make decisions around the animal. But because of how our society functions, they are not able to sell the animals because they can't go into the marketplace. They can't go into a mandi. I mean, I can't go into a mandi, and I'm this empowered city person. I mean, and it's a scary place. So the women cannot go to the mandis. They can't interact with the buyers, and if they are, like we talked about the decisions around water, women are much more sort of inclusive in their decision making, I believe. They will think about the entire family when they are making resource-based decisions. So when it comes to selling, they will also be, I think, much more, their decision making will be much more effective in terms of benefiting more people, rather than sometimes a man's, not all men, but some men, will be more driven by, what am I getting now? What do I need this money for? Things like that.
How can we not use technology to solve this problem of women not having access, and also rural communities not having access, not just women?
Yeah. So we started our eMandi project almost 2 years ago. And we had developed the app, we've got the app, it works. And then what we came across was two things. One was most of these communities don't have internet access. And number two was very few have access to phones, women especially, by the way. So we started a project called Goats for Phones, where we want to make smartphones accessible and affordable. And we started pitching this in a community, and we were told by our partners who obviously know the community better. We were taken aside and said, listen, please don't talk about phones for women. And I was like, why? We were talking about कि अगर आपके पास phone आ जाएगा तो आप health, जैसे there are a lot of health tech out there that are remotely
for everything. Yeah.
Huge so we were talking about that, and then we were taken aside and said, listen, please don't talk about this, because there's a very sensitive issue in the community. And I was thinking to myself, it's not actually just these communities. No. It's educated urban communities as well who think this way. Women should not be given access to communication, to mobility, because there's this idea of, I don't know what women will end up doing if they have, access to communication and mobility. So
they will be powerful. They'll be empowered, and that's something I don't know why it's so scary for them.
Yes.
It shouldn't be. I mean, if women are empowered and they are thinking of the general well-being of everyone, then why be scared of that?
Exactly.
I don't understand it.
But sorry, to continue on the point that how can technology help? So that is what we are actually doing. That now we've got agents who use the smartphones, and we want to take them to the villages. We have gotten on board an amazing sort of a CTO who's also highly into tech, and he and I are working together to get Wi-Fi into villages, because imagine what will happen if a village gets Wi-Fi, right?
I thought that the telecom companies have been telling us, and the Ministry of IT and Telecom has been telling us, that now Wi-Fi is available across the country. Is this not true? I mean,
I cannot speak.
Have been initiatives that have come under the, the ministry departments, which are especially focused on supplying Wi-Fi connectivity to places where it hasn't been available in the past. So if there are still places like this where Wi-Fi is not available, then we need to change that, not by doing something ourselves or by it costing the local people a lot more, but by making sure those government initiatives are brought into these cities and small villages, right?
Absolutely, Jahanara. And I was also kind of surprised. So when we worked in Thar, I mean, the areas that we work in, there was no connectivity, not even phone connectivity. And then we looked into it and we found it's a border area, so maybe, but then we went into Jamshoro, which is 2 hours outside Karachi, and this village, like my manager who's there, like I have to literally time my calls with him कि अब आप इतने बजे available इस area में जाइएगा ताकि phone connectivity available हो. So I don't know, I can't speak for Punjab about the remote areas there, but Sindh, no, there is no connectivity. I'm sorry, and in areas where
we need to talk to the Universal Service Fund, who's supposed to be taking care of this, right?
Yes, we would love to work with them to kind of bring this to these communities, because I mean, it's much like roads, like what used to be roads back in the day.
Basic right. It's a basic right for every citizen in this country, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I mean, I don't know what I would do without connectivity. And I think you wouldn't know what you would do without connectivity. So why should these other citizens who are part of our country be deprived? I don't think. And I've heard the USF people and the ministry all talk about this. So maybe it's something that they're unaware of, perhaps, that maybe we can talk to them about and make it happen.
Yeah. And also another thing, like, right, I mean, we've got a lot of mobile money platforms.
Yes.
And in my observation, and it was we really, one of our biggest things was when we are doing the e-Mandi, we need to make payments to the farmers. And I've brought this up on many forums. I think that the fee is so exorbitant that it's catering to the low-hanging fruit, right? These, like the telco companies, are going for the low-hanging fruit, which is remittances from urban to rural, right? Between the workers. That's easy. But we need to now think about, this is a huge tool that is available, make it accessible in terms of pricing for people who are living in these communities where the transaction amount is very small. And even a large fee becomes very onerous for these people, right? Especially when we talk about selling and connecting to market for their produce, because the margins are so small, right? You can't have these huge or relatively speaking huge, which may seem small when we talk about urban transactions, but rural transactions aren't that big. And that is also something that really, I think the government needs to take notice, that the telcos that are operating, are they really delivering on this mandate? And how far are they delivering? Are they really doing the hard work? It's easy to do the easy work, right? It's easy to go for the low-hanging fruit. But if you have the capacity, and if you are the, what do you call, the stewards of technology, then please do the needful, do the hard work, do what is hard.
I think what they have been saying, from what I understand, and I don't understand it completely, is that they need additional spectrum from the government, and they haven't had access to that additional spectrum. So if that's the case, then that's an easy one to solve, right? If they can be provided with the extra spectrum, and that way many more cities and towns and villages can be connected, then I think any government should be happy to do that.
Yes. And what is this extra spectrum? Is it like 5G? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, not necessarily. It can also be 3G, 4G, but that additional spectrum is needed in order for them to provide the connectivity to other parts of the country.
Yeah. And we leave it to the stewards of, yes, the government and the telcos to
work it out. Maybe we'll put this question to them and find out what the real answer is, and something that probably you and I don't completely understand, but maybe they can provide an answer. So tell me your journey in the energy sector. What has that been like? What were the biggest lessons that you have learned on that journey?
So my journey on the energy sector
that was through multiple countries, right? Not just Pakistan.
Yeah. Since we're talking about break the bias, let me tell you my journey from the gender lens. which is
that was going to be my next question, that you've been mainly in traditionally male-dominated areas, both energy as well as now agri, livestock. So what is, I'm sure you have some interesting stories to share from both these areas.
Yes, absolutely. And, I've been very fortunate. My parents never let us, my sister and I, feel that there's anything that we could not do or any area that we couldn't go. And so we never thought of sectors as being, oh, this is gender, this is better for your gender, this is not, right? So I found myself in the energy space. And initially, though, it was easy because I was working with multilaterals and development organizations, which is a very soft landing which is very, very gender sensitive. But very soon in my career, I found myself being placed in the Ministry of Water and Power, and coming from a somewhat sort of a protected, what we would say, burger background and sort of environment of LUMs and then grad school and then multilaterals. And that was by far the experience which taught me the most, working in the ministry, right? Initially, I would find myself not being heard, not being seen even. And I would find myself that I would always be in literally not just meetings, but entire floors of the ministry where I was probably the only woman there, or maybe one of two. And the rest would be the secretaries or the assistants. But that experience, what I learned from it is, and now, mashallah, there's so many women in this space, and I'm just so proud of each and every one of them, because I know how hard it is to navigate this space. But what I learned there, Jahanara, is that, persistence and persistently speaking up and not allowing that expectation कि आप चुप रहेंगी और आप मतलब अपनी जगह पर जो expected है आपसे, आप वहाँ सिर्फ बैठी रहेंगी, not letting that get to you, and to actually sort of going beyond the comfort zone and speaking up because you have value to add, and knowing and believing in that, that kind of. And then there are, I would say, allies in every space, men who are allies. And I found, and I found many of those, and those have been really, really pivotal in my journey, making my way through both the power sector and now the livestock and the agri space. You're on silent, you're on mute.
So no interesting stories that you're going to reveal about something that happened that you were able to then overcome. No.
Some interesting stories. This was the biggest, overcoming your own, who was I speaking to? I was speaking to actually my coach the other day. I have a coach a business coach, and I was telling her that somebody said this to me the other day, that, people believe that you're just kind of doing this on the side, which is a perception which is apparently going around. And it used to really weigh me down. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Am I not working hard enough? But then I realized what it was. I am a woman working in the livestock sector, in the agri sector. So obviously, the perception is that if you're not a designer, or if you're not, and even that, or running a bakery, which are all very hard work, but somehow these are areas that women are allowed to succeed in. But a woman working in the agri space, like, how is it possible? Of course, she's doing it just because, it's like a side thing. So that expectation, I'm saying that we absorb that, as women in these environments, we somehow, what in psychology terms is called an introject. So projection is when we project our expectations and our feelings onto someone else. Introjects are what we take into ourselves from the surrounding. And these introjects, we as women somehow manage to take in and then perform according to those expectations, or give ourselves those expectations. And to be in awareness of those introjects, that those don't belong to us, that's not us, is key. I think that's the biggest challenge for
us to overcome. Yeah, absolutely. So let's end on a more general question. What are socially led businesses? And where are we as far as Pakistan is concerned in sort of empowering socially led businesses or even allowing them to succeed?
Yeah, that is a great question. And thank you so much for asking it, Jahanara. So first of all, I've always grappled with this term social entrepreneur and a social enterprise. And as you know, when I first stepped into the entrepreneurship space, I did it in a sort of, I kind of stumbled into it. So all these terms were very new for me. And then I started thinking about what is a social enterprise. A social enterprise serves a certain sort of economic group of people who are, considered to be have less income. But I want to put this out there that isn't every value creating business a social enterprise? Think about Uber. To me, Uber is, and Careem now in our part of the world, are the biggest social enterprises. Think about the impact they're having. They are creating jobs for people who didn't have jobs before. They've created a way for people to earn extra living. They've created mobility for women. So then I ask you, what is a social enterprise? To come to the next part of your question, I think just as we need to stop seeing businesses from a gendered lens, we also need to stop seeing businesses from socially led or, from this lens, this is a social enterprise. And I've actually come across this where certain investors and certain quite reputable investors who are mandated to sort of work with startups and businesses say कि अच्छा ये आप social work क्यों कर रही हैं? मतलब why don't you remove this from? And I'm like, this is a profitable business, and we are serving an underserved, uncaptured segment of the market. It's a $7.8 billion market. Just because I'm talking about impact first, because that's what drives me. I can very easily pivot that pitch and come at it from like, oh, I'm this super ag tech, fancy, whatever. But because that's what drives me and that's what drives my team, there needs to be that lens just needs to be dropped now.
Yeah, because I think many people believe that social enterprises are not out there to create businesses. They're just there to create impact without creating revenue, generating revenue for themselves, growing the business, scaling the business. I don't know why they feel that it is a limiting sort of area to be in. So you're quite right. If we drop the social, then perhaps everybody will start looking at it as just a business.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Great talking to you, Fariel, and thank you for taking the time. And let's meet up soon and, have conversations beyond what we've talked about today.
Thank you so much, Jahanara. Thank you for opening up this space and for the great questions and the great discussion. And definitely let's meet up soon.
Okay, great. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.